Hello, everybody, and welcome in tonight to Speedway Soccer Live. Guys, this is our first time doing this. This is super exciting. We are presented by Broadway Sports Media tonight. So listen, we're going to try to do these frequently. I don't know if they'll be every week, but we'll try to do them fairly often. And we just want to get down together, talk soccer, field some of your questions if you have any. We're hopeful that there'll be some people who are new to the sport, new to Nashville SC in particular. So if that's you, feel free to shout it out. No questions wrong, no questions dumb. We want to help answer your questions and let you get to know the team better. I am Davey Shepherd. I'll be your host tonight. I'm the host of Speedway Soccer, also the host of Nashville Soccer Show on 104.5 The Zone. And I am joined tonight by Ben Wright, head writer at Broadway Sports Media, Jonathan Slape, contributor at Broadway Sports Media and Speedway Soccer. Guys, how are we tonight?
Doing well, man. I'm excited to start doing these. I think these are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, really.
I agree completely.
Really excited to be doing these. We had a good time doing the preview last week before the Houston game, and so looking forward to keeping these up.
We got Ball and Ali in the house. He says, yes, I'm new. What is soccer? As soon as we figure out what it is, we'll be sure to let you know. But it's the round ball, not the egg-shaped ball. And I know you've been to a few games before, Ball, and we're going to make sure we get you back to more with the guys from Broadway Sports and Speedway Soccer as soon as we are back in the stadium as fans. Ben, big news this week. Yonder Cadiz, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. If you listen to Paradise Park, I think he says Yonder Cadiz, which I'll give Josh credit there. He's probably right. He's in town. We know he made it in. He posted an Instagram from Nashville just the other day. How big of a piece of news is that going to be for the club, especially in light of all the injuries that we've got right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously him just getting into town is a big piece of news with some of the visa holdups that we've seen. I think even bigger than just his arrival is the fact that he's going to be available for selection as early as next week. In his press conference today, Nashville head coach Gary Smith said that he'll be medically cleared to join the team on Wednesday. So, I mean, we could see him involved as early as Saturday's game. Smith said that he expects him to start pretty quickly. So, I mean, I think it's going to go from 0 to 60 with Cadiz pretty fast. And with the injuries that you mentioned, Dom Badji, who's been the primary starter at striker, he's out injured with a hamstring. Daniel Rios went off injured in their last game against Houston. And then Abu Danladi, who's really the other natural striker on the field, he's been injured. I mean, it couldn't come at a better time. They'll be eager to get him up and running as quickly as they can.
So Ben and Slate both, look, you guys are both more MLS focused than I've ever been before we've made this endeavor together. For a guy like Ballin, who's maybe new to Nashville SC, new to MLS, talk a little bit about the DP structure. Don't give us every detail because I don't want to be here for the next 6 hours, but kind of give us the broad strokes of that and why it's important to get another guy like that in on the roster.
Yeah, so just high level. So Nashville or MLS has a salary cap. It is pretty low compared to the rest of the world of soccer. But there are several mechanisms within the salary cap. Basically, the designated player allows you to pay someone way above the max salary, but it only count as the max cap hit, which is somewhere around $560,000. So it's only a cap hit of $560,000, but you could be paying them $25 million. There's no one in MLS making that amount of money, but I mean that's kind of the high level, and each team are allowed to have 3 of those.
Ben, any other thoughts to add?
I mean, I think we've just seen how important the DP slots are. The best teams in the league are usually the teams that not only have the best DPs, but get the most production from their DPs on a consistent basis. And I think for Nashville, I mean, we've seen their 2 DPs so far, Hani Mukhtar and Randall Leal. They've both been involved, but I don't think we've seen really the end product that Nashville was hoping to get out of those 2 guys. So I think, I mean, there's clearly still time. It's a new team, but I think they'll be definitely hoping that Cadiz can maybe hit the ground running a little bit faster than the other 2.
Ballin asks, how big of an impact do you think Cadiz can have on this team? And I'll feel this first and then kind of let you guys take it from here. Ballin, if you've kept up kind of at all over the last bit, I think it's clear that the number one issue this team has had is goal scoring. A very good team defensively, one of the better teams in MLS defensively. If you look at the spine of the team up the middle, one of the better midfield pivots you'll see in all of MLS between Godoy and McCarty. And then we've had a few good creative players kind of start to get on a roll. You've seen Hani Mukhtar kind of start to get his feet underneath him, get some assists, bag a goal. But we haven't had a consistent goal scorer. It took to the last game where Daniel Rios became our first multi-goal scorer. So if you can bring in a guy with the pedigree of a Cadiz who has scored goals in Liga, and he scored the goal against PSG. He scored goals in the Portuguese Super League. He's done well at the European level. He's not a huge goal scorer over there, but we've seen comparable guys with comparable statistics come over and make a huge impact at the MLS level. Other teams aside, this team just doesn't have a pure goal scorer on the roster who's been able to take off yet. Daniel Rios just got 2 goals in a row. Unfortunately, came off with a groin injury. We need somebody who can get up front. I think he's faster than Rios. Ben, would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think he seems to be able to do the link-up play with his back to goal at a level better than a guy like Badji can do. So that's what I think Mike Jacobs and Gary Smith are hoping they can get out of him. Ben, Slape, you disagree with that? You think maybe anything else in addition?
No, I mean, I think I would agree with that. I think one of the things that he's going to bring to this team most of all is, another player up front who is kind of a hybrid of both, like you said, of both what Badji and Rios do. But I think he has a unique skill set of just his size and the pace that he has. Like, he's a big man, but he's not he's not your Peter Crouch target striker kind of guy. He can play like that, but he can also he can move well, good off the ball movement. And I think while he won't solve everything, and I'm not expecting him to come in and, Nashville immediately be, putting 3 and 4 goals in a game. But I think he'll go a long way to helping this offense.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that we've seen Dom Badji get so many minutes is just, I think Gary Smith really likes how he plays. I don't think the end product has not been one of his strengths, but I think you've seen how he changes the dynamic on the field just with the runs he makes. He's clearly faster than Rios, and I think he has better hold-up ability just when he's isolated against a single defender. So I think Cadiz is a guy who can do that as well, but just his ability to finish, that's something that Nashville has sorely lacked so far. They'll be hoping that Cadiz takes off. The other thing to point out is that they haven't purchased him. He's on loan until June 2021. So they'll have an extended trial period to see if it's even the right fit before they have to think about making it permanent and spending the money to bring him here full time.
So I think the other note with him is that he's got the ability to bag assists, and so with a player of Mukhtar's pedigree or like Leal or some of those types of guys, I think the joining them up together is going to be important. It's not just about him coming and scoring goals; it's him freeing up Mukhtar, running those channels to free up the Leal so that they can score as well.
So, what do you think the over/under is? I'm going to put goals and assists. Over/under 7 goals and assists. And, let's say Nashville has 10 games left. He'll probably play in 6.
That's a point. I mean, that's more than a point a game. I would say that is ambitious for a guy who's brand new to the league. I would be thrilled if he could get 5 goals and assists total before the end of the year. Let's say he plays in 6 or 7. I think that would be a really, really good performance. And I think that would be enough to get us into the playoff.
Yeah, I think that's more realistic. And I mean, this year has just been weird anyway, but it's always hard to come in the summer window. We've seen in MLS players coming in the summer have struggled without a preseason and a regular offseason. So I think assuming that 2021 is more back to normal than what we've seen this year, I think hopefully we'll see a little bit more of what he's actually like in 2021. But yeah, I mean, 5 goals and assists over the rest of the season seems like a high mark to hit, but I feel like it's attainable for sure.
We've got Anderson Simmons chiming in over here asking if this is the Arsenal fan pod. Andy, you know well that is Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone is Arsenal fan radio. We've got all the guys from Arsenal TV coming on next week, so just be sure to tune into that. We appreciate it.
Listen here, blood.
Ballin, we weren't clear before, DP is not have the traditional meaning of DP that you may know. It stands for designated player, which is really just one of a few players on the roster who are outside of the normal salary cap. There's a billion stupid salary cap rules in this league. There's fake money, there's McDonald's money, there's Monopoly money, everything, but learn no DP, and that's pretty much all you need to know. That's about all I know. Okay, guys, so that's Yonder Cadiz. Again, we're hopeful he's impactful. It looks like he can make a start next weekend. Definitely not this weekend and not Tuesday as well, right? Then it would be Wednesday would be the
they
earliest.
said Wednesday is when he'd be cleared to start training with the team. I'm guessing that's when he'll finish up the quarantine and stuff. So I don't think we definitely won't see him involved on Tuesday. And ideally, he'd come off the bench on Saturday.
Okay, let's move into the match against New England Revolution coming up this weekend. Guys, Revs, one of those OG MLS teams, above us in the table right now. I think they are currently sitting in 5th, and they are on 21 points, while we are in 8th with a game in hand, sitting on 16 points. Look, I think anytime you're playing a team above you in the table, there's obviously a lot of potential there for you to do good things in relation to the rest of your opponents in your conference. But also, I don't think any type of point is a given when you're playing somebody above you in the table. Is this one of the cases where you go on the road and you get a point, just get the draw, where that is a good enough result for this club at this point in time?
I mean, I would think right now, Ben has kind of touched on the injuries that Nashville's facing. We know it'll be a late fitness test for Daniel Rios. Looks like more than likely Abu Danladi will be the starting striker. So I think going into New England with a banged up front line, I think a point is great. Scoring on this team is going to be tough. Matt Turner is hands down the best goalkeeper in MLS, and a lot of people are talking about is Matt Turner even the number one goalkeeper for the national team, considering he is starting games week in, week out?
Yeah, let's pause and dig in on that. So I thought Jeff Ruder's tweet was really, really good about that. And he said basically like, who was it, Extra Time or somebody came out with that tweet saying, is Turner the starter over Stefan?
Yeah,
friend of the pod, Matt Doyle has been on that train for a while.
Friend of the pod, Matt Doyle, has been leading that train. Jeff Ruder, who a lot of people, friend of the pod as well, one of our, I think our original guest, right? Our first
the OG guest,
which we love. We're a big Jeff Ruder fan, even though he's low in Nashville and he dogs Nashville nonstop, which is fine. Listen, is he really the number one? I mean, do you guys agree with that? You guys are more in on the player pool than me, but I just can't for the life of me see how a guy who's in MLS, regardless of the minutes given, if Stefan's over there performing well in cup minutes and against lower Premier League sides, he's the number one goalie, right?
I'll say I think that Stefan is still the number one. I can see the argument of, Turner's playing week in, week out. But the fact that, Stefan he's training at a higher level. He's going to be the guy that's going to be the scout team that's facing shots from the likes of, Sergio Aguero, Raheem Sterling, Riyad Mahrez. I think even just the level of training, and then training with a guy like Ederson is going to go a long way. I think he's going to get minutes, and I know that Justin had a question about the Champions League draw, and we'll get into that later. But I think looking at City's Champions League draw, I think that Stefan will get at least one game, maybe even two if they qualify early. So I think he'll get minutes, and we've seen that Ederson does have a red card in him. So, I think he's going to get decent time this year.
Yeah, I agree.
If they keep leaking in goals to Leicester, who knows? He might get big-time Premier League minutes, right? 5 to Leicester. Good God, That's Chelsea quality stuff.
I think, I agree with everything Slape said. I think Zach Steffen is hands down the better goalkeeper. I think Matt Turner has been the stand-up performer in MLS this year, and honestly for a couple of years. And I think it gets interesting. There's been rumored European interest around Turner, and I think it gets interesting if he goes to a smaller club in Europe where he's starting week in and week out and still performing at a high level. I think then you have a bigger argument. Do you go with a guy who's on the bench for a big club, or a guy who's performing at a high level in Europe every week for a smaller club? I think that's an interesting argument. But I think right now, like Slape said, he's just the quality that he's playing against in training every week. If you can start a guy who's performing against Sergio Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne, Riyad Mahrez, all those guys, I think that in and itself is just really valuable.
So, guys, I know I hijacked it there. I'm sorry. Back to New England Revolution. I just had to chime in there when we brought it. So, Slape, you were saying, obviously, Turner does play there. He's been the best goalie in MLS, so they're very good at the back, and we'll go back in it from there.
Yeah, I mean, they don't score a ton of goals. They did pick up Lee Wynn from Miami. They've lost Gustavo Bo, who's been their main goal scorer. He is out with an injury. I believe he's out for the season. So, but there's still some guys like Teal Bunbury, Diego Fagundes that Nashville will have to keep an eye on. And anyone that's a U.S. national team fan is familiar with Bruce Arena. And aside from a team when he sets them up in Trinidad, he does usually a pretty good job of tactically setting up a team.
Another interesting note for New England is that Henry Kessler has been one of their standout performers, the center back. He's a guy who Nashville had the option to pick up in the super draft, and they passed on him, and he ended up going 6th overall, and he's probably, I think he's the front runner for the rookie of the year at this point. So, I mean, look, I'm not going to go out here and say that Kessler is better than Jack Mayer, and I think really anybody would have trouble getting into the back line as it stands right now, but I think it's an interesting storyline for sure.
We saw a few different tweaks with the roster last week against Houston. Obviously, some of that was injury-driven. Some of it was just rest. Do we expect Alistair Johnston to be back in the starting lineup this week?
I mean, I would be surprised if he's not. I mean, even though he didn't get the start, you saw just how he came on in the second half and completely changed the game for Nashville. And I think we've seen it talked about on Twitter and the like, just how Nashville's service from the right side hasn't always been the greatest, and I think Johnston gives you the best service from the right side of any fullback on the roster. And I mean, as good as Anibaba is, I think Johnston is just a better two-way player. So yeah, I don't see how you keep him out for an extended period of time. I'd be interested to see. I think I'm more interested to see if Alex Mule is involved. He came off at a halftime. He had probably his worst game in a Nashville shirt in the first half, which he's played really well.
A ton of minutes too.
Played basically every minute since he got here, and played really well. So I mean, he could have just needed a break. He looked like he was maybe hobbling a bit, so there might be some injury concerns there. But I'll be interested to see how involved he is, especially with Derek Jones' form. I don't know if that's something that we were going to touch on, but
yeah, I was about to go there next. I mean, with Derek playing the way he's playing and getting that performance from him out of the middle. Now, I'll say this. He turned the ball over a ton in the second half, and Gary very clearly wasn't happy about it. But the way he's been playing, look, I've been as anti-moving Hani wide as anybody has been this whole time. But if Derek Jones is going to play that good, I think you can't afford to have Hani wide and lay all on the other side and then maybe give Moyle a rest. So it's going to be interesting to see as far as that's concerned. You guys seem to think Dunlawdy is a lock to start. What would you say, Ben, the chances are that Derek Jones gets to start at the 9? Like 25% lower?
If Dunlawdy's healthy, if he can even go 55, 60 minutes, I think he starts.
You put him in.
Right. Derek Jones is not a 9. And I think that's why. I mean, you talked about him turning the ball over. I think that's probably a big reason why is because he's never played that position before. And I think even though he's probably a little bit out of position as a 10, he has more runners, more options, more people pulling defenders off of him to give him space to really make those runs into the box that cause defenses a lot of trouble. If he's playing with his back to goal, I mean, it just eliminates a huge skill set of his. So I don't think that's ideal at all. And I think really just you don't want to, in a game like this where you're one spot above the playoff line, I don't think you need to try anything. Like Derek Jones in an experimental position if you have a guy who's played that position before and you can even go 55, 60 minutes. I think they'll probably start him, and the way it sounded from the press conference, it sounds like Daniel Rios is going to be close. So I think ideally you start Dunlawdy and then bring Daniel Rios off in the second half.
So that takes me to my next question. Steve Cavendish brought this up post-game Saturday, that we've seen Romney and Zimmerman play every minute of every game so far this year. Do we think someone spells them at some point in time? And if so, who would that be? To me, I just think Anibaba is the clear guy that you would insert there, correct?
Yeah, I would think Anibaba is the guy that you insert there. I don't think this is a game that you bring in someone
right.
And I think that Tuesday is a different question. Like that's a short week from a Saturday to a Tuesday. We then followed up again on a Saturday. So I could see that midweek Tuesday game at home. Potentially that being an option. I just think Anibaba is like hands down the guy that you bring in. He's played in this defensive back line so far. He is also familiar with. I know we were talking about with New England this week, but this is where he was before he came here.
So, if we've got, go ahead, Ben. Sorry,
I don't know if they're going to rotate center back. Honestly, I mean,
I don't think so either.
I think we could realistically see Joe Willis, Walker Zimmerman, and Davey play every minute this season. And I think Slape, you mentioned it. You mentioned it before that center backs tend to play more minutes than really the rest of the field. I mean, not that their job isn't hard, but they tend to cover less ground than really any other position on the field, and I think they can kind of hold up over longer stretches. So, I mean, barring injury or potentially like a red card or something like that, I think we're going to see the two of them play every minute this season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we wouldn't have seen. I mean, Daniel Lovitz wouldn't have come out and not started if it wasn't for yellow card suspension. I think while Anibaba is the first choice off of to come off and give those guys a rest, but I just don't. I would agree. I don't think Nashville rests either of those two guys.
I'm right there with you. I said it on Nashville Soccer Show on Tuesday night. For me, it's overachieving to get to the playoffs, right? So if you just got to ride those two guys as long as you can, and if they get you to the playoffs, you roll the dice. Then if you win a game or two, great. But you're winning the season by just getting there, and I don't know how you get there without those two dudes rock solid right in the middle of the back line. So I thought it was a good question from Steve because they're playing a ton of minutes in short succession with weird stops and starts and all that stuff. But I mean, they're as good of two players and as good of that partnership is as important as McCarty and Godoy in the middle of the field. So I just don't see how they come out. I think Anibaba is a good player, but Gary DeSmith trusts his defense. He wants the team to be a certain way at the back, and that lets them be a certain way going forward, and I don't expect to see the changes myself either. Guys, again, I rely on you for MLS stuff. Bruce Arena-led team. Everybody knows that name if you know anything about U.S. soccer. What's kind of a trademark of a Bruce Arena team, and how is this team reflective of that this season?
Yeah, real quick, I misspoke. Gustavo Bo is healthy. He had been injured, but no, a Bruce Arena team. I mean, they're going to be well drilled, but the way the Revs are playing, I mean, he's going to attack, but the attack is going to be pretty. There's going to be some structure to that attack, and they're going to be pretty technical, but also well drilled defensively as well. They will sit back at times. There'll be a team that's hard to break down.
I think, though, what we'll see from them, and this probably plays into Nashville's favor to some extent, they're a team who likes to have the ball. And I think we've seen Nashville really do well against teams who have more of the ball, where Nashville can force turnovers in midfield and get to goal quickly. I mean, I think we've talked about it kind of ad nauseum at this point, but winning the ball high up in midfield and going to goal quickly is the blueprint of this Nashville team. And I think we've seen them struggle more when teams sit back and kind of ask them to ask Nashville to break them down. I don't think New England's going to do that, certainly not at home. So I think Nashville will have opportunities to high press, win the ball, go on the counter. And I think that's really where they're at their best. So I think New England will have a tough test on their hands to break down this Nashville defense, especially if Godoy and McCarty can continue to start in front of that defense.
So we've touched on it. We think a point is a good result. What do we think the likelihood of a win is? I mean, it seems to be this kind of team we've played well against throughout the year. They're maybe not like a great exemplary team, but they're certainly above us in the table, above us probably a talent on the roster. What do you think about the odds of going up there and grabbing all three?
I mean, I think there's a decent chance. It's not some pie in the sky thought of Nashville going up there and winning. But I mean, I think it's going to be a tough opponent. I think that anybody that pretty much everybody that we've played, I wouldn't say other than actually not maybe DC. We haven't really played a bad team thus far. I mean, Atlanta's a team in transition, but I think
individual talent's there though. Atlanta's,
the individual talent's there. So I think that I think while a win isn't out of the question, it's definitely it'll be a tough game.
Yeah, I think a draw would be a good result at this point. But I mean, at the same time, Nashville went to Columbus, dominated the game for 60 odd minutes, and had chances to win it. So I mean, I'm not saying that Nashville's going to win it, and every game's different. But I think I've talked about it before. I think that result, even though it was a loss, a 2-0 loss, I think it will give them confidence. Hey, we can go anywhere and play with any team in the league, and not look out of place. So I mean, I think a draw would be a good result for them at this point, but I wouldn't rule out Nashville making it closer than that.
Guys, about 5 minutes left on the show tonight. Why don't we switch gears a little bit and go into European soccer? Champions League draw was today. All three of our clubs are involved, unlike another host who currently is not on live with us, Anderson Simmons. That being said, what do we think of the draws so far? I'll start with a group that isn't ours. Group A, I think, is the hardest of the bunch, right? Bayern, Atletico, and Salzburg together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely the toughest group there. For the American soccer fan, definitely some interest with the fact that, Jesse Marsch is there at Red Bull Salzburg. So an American coach, and Brendan Aronson, who has been strongly linked with a move away from Philadelphia to Salzburg. But that move wouldn't come to the end of the season. So unless Salzburg advances, definitely wouldn't see time. But I mean, it's going to be a tough game. I mean, there's no easy games. And then you throw in the fact that you have to travel to Moscow, which is not with a compressed schedule for all of these teams is definitely something that will be tough.
I'm gonna pull a Will Bowling and talk about my team here for a second. But I think I know I'm a biased Manchester United fan, but I think their group is, if it's not the hardest group, it's definitely up there. I mean, Manchester United,
hard.
PSG, United, and RB Leipzig are all teams that you could reasonably expect to see in the quarterfinals, potentially even further. And then Istanbul, I know they haven't got a lot of hype, but they've really kind of taken over the Turkish Super League from Fenerbahce, Beşiktaş, and some of those bigger teams. So I mean, I think, however it shapes out, I think you're going to see a team playing in the Europa League who probably, just on pure talent, should be advancing pretty deep into the competition. Yeah.
I mean, and I'll say about from the Liverpool perspective, there's definitely some tough teams in that group, with Ajax, Atalanta, and Midtjylland. But I think when I was looking at this, looking into the draw, I was looking at teams I wanted to be able to have games that were close, with close travel. So, I mean, it doesn't get much better than, the farthest you have to go is to Italy. But there'll be some fun games there. I think Atalanta surprised a lot of people last year. They attack well, a lot of fun attacking through their fullbacks, which I really enjoy watching. But I think probably the biggest story is we're going to get to see Serginho Dest and Weston McKennie face off against each other as Juventus and Barcelona play each other in Champions League,
if you had told me 2 years ago that you would have an American on Juventus and Barcelona, and they would both have pretty solid chances of playing significant minutes or even starting in the Champions League, I mean, I would have told you were absolutely insane.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's crazy. I mean, that'll obviously get huge viewers in the States. And look, that's going to be a good group too. I mean, it's so important. We've seen it time and time after again. Just winning your group, how important it is to have that lower seed matchup in the round of 16. So it's going to be super important. That'll be a good couple of matchups. From a Chelsea fan's perspective, I love the draw. I think it's super interesting. We'll see Mendy go up and play against his old club. That's good to see. John's saying Barcelona's a dumpster fire. There's no way around that. He's absolutely right. But that being said, they still have the best player in the world on the team. And they'll do damage. They'll make it out of the group stage. Chelsea's got Sevilla, which I hate because Sevilla is so good. But I feel fine about the group. I think we'll win it.
But you're not playing Sevilla in the Europa League.
Europa, yeah, you're exactly.
So
right.
you're not. No need to worry. And then John said,
"Hey, watch out! Sevilla's better. Give Sevilla credit. They beat us last year."
Well, I'm just saying
they're good.
I'm just saying I need to feel good about Manchester United. So don't trash Sevilla.
No, I'm not. I'm not trashing Sevilla whatsoever. I'm just saying if Sevilla is in the Europa League, there's no point in playing the Europa League because Sevilla will win the Europa League.
Yeah, I mean, they're good enough at the Europa League that they need to be able to do something in the Champions League at this point.
Yeah, but I'm going to push back on something John said. He said he kind of wished that Dest would have gone to Bayern instead of Barcelona. I mean, I think that, looking at who Bayern Munich has at right back, when you have a guy like Pavard there, Kimmich, there's a lot of guys in front of them. And, Dest even said this today, was that he felt that going to Barcelona gives him the chance to start probably most games, and he's going to play for a Dutch coach who is familiar with him as a player. So I think those two things go a long way. While Barcelona may be a bit of a dumpster fire, but it's still Barcelona. It's still one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Guys, I'm going to ask one more question and we'll close this up. One storyline from the Premier League this year that has surprised you that cannot involve your team of choice. Ben, I'll start with you.
I think Leeds United has to be it. I mean, I know Bielsa he's too good to be coaching in the Championship, right? He's probably one of the better managers in the world, or at least in Europe, I would say. But I don't think anybody expected them to come out and kind of play this high-octane, win every game, score 3 or 4 goals every game. I think they've just been incredibly entertaining, and I'm interested to see if they can keep it up. But, I mean, I think another interesting storyline with them, too, is that they have Jack Harrison, who was a guy grew up in Massachusetts, played in MLS 2 or 3 years ago, and he's playing a key role on a team that's one of the more exciting teams in the Premier League. So, I mean, if we're going to try to tie everything back to MLS, I think that they're definitely a team to watch.
Yeah, and I would say, probably I would give 2 quick things. I've been pleasantly surprised at how well Everton has done. I mean, I know it's only 3 games in, but they went out there and they picked up some good players. They went and got Alon from Napoli, Del Core from Watford, and I think they're actually solving those issues that have been there for a long time, and they haven't been great in the midfield. But they're still a very thin team. They signed Ben Godfrey today from Norwich, but it'll just be interesting to see what all happens there. As much as I like to give Evertonians a hard time because they haven't never done much. It'll be good. Another team in Merseyside being good is always good. And then also Brighton. Brighton's been they haven't won all of their games, but I mean, they've been fun to watch. Graham Potter have them out there, playing some really good soccer. They could already lose Lamptey. There's already talk about Bayern Munich coming in for him since they lost that on Dest. But, Brighton has been a team that I've been pleasantly surprised and really enjoyed catching their games.
Yeah, the Lamptey thing is crazy, man, when you think that, and this is not my point, but that Chelsea had Reece James and Lamptey both kind of neck and neck, and both of them are so good. It's good to see Lamptey performing so well despite being sold from the bigger club. I'm glad to see him doing well at Brighton. For me, I'm going to go the other direction. There's 2 things that I think were interesting. The Jota buy at Liverpool really, really surprised me. I think it was really, really good, just a good signing for depth in that team. I did not just kind of see that coming, but good on them. We've already seen it pay off so far, so I hope it continues to do that well for Liverpool because I think he's a great, exciting player that's a lot of fun to watch. For me, the storyline so far is Sheffield's slow start. I thought with no European football, they were going to be edge and kind of have that cutting knife that they had before. Look, I just think it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of restart and kind of get there. But with that team, and Ben, you said it the other day on the show, if they're not getting goals from the center forward position, it's going to be really, really tough for them. So that's what we've seen so far. He says, in the time it took David to say that, Lamptey dove 6 times.
On the Sheffield piece, they could be solving those issues. Sheffield are very interested in Ryan Brewster from Liverpool, who
on loan or a purchase?
On purchase. So Liverpool have been looking to move him only with a buyback clause. Because the club feels that he needs to go out and play, and he needs to go out and be able to make it his own. Right now, I don't think he necessarily fits Liverpool's system, but he did go to Swansea and was putting in a goal every other game and playing really well. So I think that could go a long way in helping Sheffield solve their goal scoring problems.
You just go out and buy Jordan Morris.
Preston North End's too busy trying to do that.
He'd never leave. Jordan Morris, proof that MLS is the right choice for everyone. That's what you hear on MLS Twitter. No one should ever leave MLS. Just look at Jordan Morris. We'll see that argument made here in about 10 minutes, I'm sure. So, guys, this is a ton of fun. Again, we're going to do them soon. John, Ballin, Andy, everybody tuned in, asked questions. Thanks for being here. We love doing this. The only reason we started doing this is because we like doing it. We're going to talk about it anyways. That's 3 years ago, and now we're here, on live with Broadway Sports and on 104.5 and all of that stuff. Huge shout out to Broadway Sports for kind of hosting all of this for us. They make it happen. We're super grateful for Jonathan and all the guys over on that team. If you like more than soccer, they have a tremendous amount of content for both the Preds, for Nashville SC, for the Titans, who are not playing this week, as you all know. So make sure you get there, get a membership. It's out of this world. It's a great value. Guys from our community putting out great content, so check it out for sure. Make sure you come subscribe, Speedway Soccer, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Twitch or Stitcher, Apple, Spotify, whatever it is. Make sure you check it out. This will be live on there as well. And then we'll be putting out podcasts every week. You can catch Nashville Soccer Show as well. We'll be doing Eurovision episodes again with Lucas Panzica soon and the rest of the Speedway's crew, Sloop and Andy as well. So, listen, we're grateful for you. Slape, Ben, it's always fun, guys. I appreciate you. And we'll be back soon with another one of these, but we'll talk to you soon on a podcast or the radio. Have a great night, everybody.